Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I am the youngest daughter of the Shen Manor. Since childhood, I have been pampered and cherished by my parents. My older brothers and sisters have indulged me endlessly, causing my temperament to gradually become arrogant, not regarding anyone as worthy. Today I would chase butterflies and tease the cats and dogs. Tomorrow I would climb walls to pick flowers, without even half the demeanor befitting a noble lady of a prestigious family. Therefore, although my status was noble and my appearance was praised as captivating, by the time I reached marriageable age, no one had come to our door to propose. My parents were endlessly troubled by this, but I remained carefree and never bothered to think about marriage. What was so good about it? A lifetime serving a husband, constantly guarding against concubines. Wouldn't it be better to just stay as I am now, free and unrestrained? I leaned against the window of the tea pavilion, slowly speaking to the maid beside me. This morning when I just woke up, I already heard the servants in the manor say that mother went early to Phap Hoa temple for pilgrimage. But I fully understand she's not there to pray for peace or blessings. It's only because she wants to pray for a marriage match for me. According to usual practice, after leaving the temple, she will definitely stop by the general's manor, borrowing the hand of the general's wife to bring back for me a pile of portraits of various noble young masters, forcing me to choose like selecting fabric at the market. Just thinking about it already annoys me, so I've decided today I'll avoid the manor, enjoying myself all day to have some peace. Frost, my personal maid, poured me a cup of tea while smiling and saying, "Then Miss just needs to find someone without parents, who also doesn't take concubines." Her words barely finished when several other maids covered their mouths giggling. I just shook my head slightly. How could such a good thing exist in this world? Frost blinked and replied quietly, "There is. This servant heard that Minister Tang lost both parents when he was young, and moreover until now has never taken a concubine." When the girls mentioned Prime Minister Liam Tang, someone who compared to my father wasn't much older in age, I had only met him twice. Once when I was 8 years old. Climbing the wall to go out and nearly falling to my death, he caught me, carried me back to the manor and reported my misdeed, causing me to be punished with confinement for several days. The other time was when I was 12 years old, sneaking away from lessons to watch a tiger circus. Unexpectedly the tiger broke out of its cage. He led people there to quell the chaos, conveniently carrying me back to the study hall, causing me to be punished with copying texts for several days. Calculating it, every time I met him was a bout of bad luck. I took a sip of tea and glanced at Frost. Don't you know, his wife died early. This type of good fortune, 8 parts of it was likely exchanged for lifespan. Hearing this, all the maids fell silent. No one dared utter another word. The matter of Prime Minister Liam, everyone in the capital knew about it. His original wife died early. From then on, he vowed for his entire life not to remarry. Such deep and profound devotion, even just hearing about it, people's hearts must be moved. Seeing I appeared somewhat contemplative, Frost hurriedly changed the topic, making the atmosphere quickly become cheerful again. The sound of laughter and conversation in the room continued without stopping until dusk. When the evening light descended, only then did I reluctantly stand up, planning to go sit at the wine pavilion next door for a while. Who would have thought? Just as I stepped out the door, a Taoist wearing pure white robes stopped me. "Miss, wait a moment." I frowned slightly. "You're calling me," he nodded, clasping his hands together and said, "Today Mrs. Countenance shows spring winds. Surely you're about to meet your heaven-ordained destiny." I burst out laughing, signaling Frost to reward him with some silver. "Then you tell me, where is this heaven-ordained destiny of mine?" The Taoist smiled cheerfully while accepting the silver, raising his hand to point forward. "The next time Miss bumps into any man, that person will be your ideal husband." I looked in the direction he pointed, not seeing anyone's shadow. By the time I turned back around, that Taoist had already vanished without a trace. Interesting indeed, but I deliberately turned toward the opposite direction, silently laughing to myself, wanting to test my luck. Frost walking beside me asked curiously, "Miss, was that Taoist speaking truth or lies?" I was just turning my head intending to tease her, while casually turning through a familiar street corner. Who would have thought? Before I could even answer, I crashed straight into someone. My nose hurt sharply. Before I could even cry out, the Taoist's words flashed through my mind. Ideal husband, could it really have come true? Frost beside me drew in a sharp breath. I raised my head, Before my eyes was a refined and handsome face, one that the years could not diminish. His eyes were deep and dark as ink, calm yet profound. Liam, the Prime Minister. He gently supported me, his voice warm but distant. Miss Shen. I froze for several beats, my eyelashes trembling slightly. Minister Tang. I stepped back. Forcing an awkward smile, I bowed. I still have urgent matters, please excuse me. Before letting him respond, I had already grabbed my skirt and turned to run away. Frost frantically chased after me. Miss, where are you going? Going to settle accounts with that damn Taoist? I said through gritted teeth. Being confused is one thing, but daring to drag Liam into my marriage destiny, truly outrageous. Today I absolutely must let him have a taste. It didn't take long before I found him leisurely sitting in a wine tavern, cup in hand, face flushed red from drink, using my very silver to eat and drink his fill. I rushed forward, pointing straight at his face. You fraud, you dare play tricks on me. After saying this, I intended to rush forward and give him a thrashing. But his movements were unusually agile, clutching the silver tightly while nimbly dodging. The two of us chased each other in circles through several rows of tables, from the ground floor running straight up to the highest floor of moon-gazing pavilion. In the end, he was panting heavily, drenched in sweat, while I was blazing with anger. Without thinking further, I swung my leg in a kick. Who would have thought he dodged? The railing broke with a crack, and I fell straight down. That floor was so high that I should have died, or at least been crippled. But no, I didn't die nor become disabled. On the contrary, when I opened my eyes, I found myself transformed into another person beside a bed. A young woman with reddened eyes was gripping my hand, her voice choked. Jade, that scoundrel Barrett isn't worth you doing this. Why did you foolishly go seeking death? I stared blankly, turning my head to look into the bronze mirror before me. In the mirror reflected not the face of Nina Shen, young lady of the Shen Manor, but rather an unfamiliar woman. Her complexion was pale and haggard, wrapped in white bandages, her features delicate yet tinged with weakness. I frantically raised my hand to touch my face. Who are you? What have you done to me? That woman burst into tears. Jade, what's wrong with you? It's me, Juan. From her sobbing words, I pieced together an absurd truth that made one feel as if dreaming. Currently I was no longer Nina but Jade Cheng, a young lady who had just lost her mother. And this time period was also not the 12th year of Chengde anymore, but rather the 20th year of Shenzhen, meaning 20 years prior. It turned out Jade had just been betrayed by her betrothed. That Barrett Zhang not only changed his heart, but also publicly demanded to break the engagement, to marry someone else. Because of this matter, she had desperately jumped into a lake to end her life. One human life exchanged wasn't worth a thing. I sighed, speaking softly. Truly without backbone. Fortunately now it's already me. Juan looked at me, tears still not dry. Jade, stop crying. You've cried until my head aches. I cut off her words, waving my hand to signal silence. The words barely finished when from outside came the sound of footsteps. Before long, a young man walked in. His stature was tall and upright, his face handsome but carrying a cunning air. Juan immediately blocked in front of me, her voice trembling with indignation. Barrett, you still dare come here to do what? He glanced at her disdainfully, then shifted his gaze to me, a lazy smile blooming on his lips. Jade, what trick are you planning now? I only said I wouldn't marry you as my principal wife, not that I had any intention of abandoning you. After I complete the marriage with Miss Liu, I will take you as a concubine. That's not really being shortchanged, is it? Juan's face flushed red with anger, but before she could say more I had already pushed her aside. Well, seeing you like this, I also feel heartache, he said, raising his hand intending to touch my face. I nimbly dodged, turning to look directly at him, speaking each word clearly. I won't marry you. Whether as principal wife or concubine, I won't marry. Barrett's hand froze mid-air, his expression turning ashen. Jade, have you lost your mind? I smiled coldly. This is the first clear-headed thing I've done. If you truly have even half a heart, you should have come to explain to me early on, not waited until the engagement was about to be broken to still speak sweet words, thinking I'm a fool. His expression grew even uglier, his voice carrying fury. You Jade, don't be ungrateful. Without me, what can a woman like you who has lost her mother do? I raised my eyebrows, my tone nonchalant. I can still live quite well. You should leave. In the future, you walk your bright road, I'll cross my single plank bridge. We'll have nothing to do with each other. Barrett stared at me for a long while. Perhaps he didn't expect me to be so resolute. He suddenly laughed coldly. Fine, Jade, you'll regret this. After speaking, he flung his sleeves and left. The room instantly became quiet. Juan rushed forward to hug me, tears streaming down her face. Jade, you truly won't regret this. I patted her shoulder, my tone gentle. I won't regret it. In this life, I won't wrong myself for anyone again. From that day on, I began my life in this era. Jade's family situation wasn't good. Her mother had just passed away, her father was a minor official working outside, rarely returning home. In the house there was only her and Juan, plus a few elderly servants. Having just experienced the blow of a broken engagement, plus no one to rely on, Jade's circumstances could be considered quite difficult. But I wasn't worried. After all, I had the memories of Nina. I knew what would happen in the future, knew which people would rise to power, which would fall into ruin. As long as I carefully planned, living a good life wouldn't be difficult. However, what I didn't anticipate was that only 3 days later, an unexpected guest would arrive. That evening, I was eating dinner with Juan when suddenly urgent knocking came from outside. Miss, something terrible has happened. An old servant's panicked voice rang out. I frowned, putting down my chopsticks. What happened? The old servant rushed in, face covered in sweat. Outside, there's someone collapsed at our doorstep, seeming seriously injured. Not knowing if they're alive or dead, I exchanged glances with Juan, both seeing surprise in each other's eyes. Collapsed at the door. Who could it be? I stood up, preparing to go outside to see. Juan hurriedly pulled me back. Jade, let's not go. What if it's some trap? I shook my head. It's fine. If someone truly intended harm, they wouldn't use such a crude method. Following the old servant outside, I saw under the dim light of the gate a person lying on the ground. That person wore tattered clothes, their body covered in bloodstains, appearing in an extremely miserable state. I walked closer and flipped him over to see his face. In that instant, my breath caught. It was actually him, Liam. Even though at this moment his face was smeared with dust and blood, those features remained impossible to mistake. This was the future Prime Minister, the man who 20 years later would make me bump into him and flee. But why would he appear here in such a state? Could it be? My heart moved. I suddenly remembered in Nina's memories, there seemed to be rumors about Liam's youth. It was said that before he rose to prominence, he had once suffered severe persecution by his clan. They even wanted to take his life. Could it be that this was that very period? Jade, this person looks like he's about to die. Should we still save him? Juan asked worriedly beside me. I looked at the person on the ground, then looked at Juan, suddenly smiling. Save him. Why wouldn't we save such a good opportunity delivered to our door? Although Juan didn't understand what I meant, she still obediently helped me carry this person into the house. After settling Liam in the room, I carefully examined his injuries. Several wounds on his body, none light, the most serious one on his chest. The blade had nearly pierced through. If not treated promptly, losing his life would be a matter of time. I took a deep breath, immediately instructing Juan to go buy medicine. Jade, this person's identity seems extraordinary. Should we save him? Juan still hesitated. I glared at her. Just go. Such dilly-dallying. After Juan left, I began treating Liam's wounds. While bandaging, I quietly observed him. Even unconscious like this, his features remained refined and handsome, though carrying a coldness that made people dare not look directly. Don't know, I answered indifferently. Picked him up on the road. Looking carefully, I suddenly remembered this was 20 years ago. In my memories, Liam was born into the prestigious Tang clan. At 17 he passed the imperial examination as the top scholar, gained His Majesty's favor, then assisted the crown prince, smoothly ascending to the position of prime minister. Calculating now, he was only 16 years old, still an orphan who had lost both parents. Juan still wasn't reassured, saying tremulously, Jade, why are you keeping him? His injuries are so severe. What if he dies in our house? When the authorities come to investigate, what then? I crossed my arms, looking at him calmly and answering, he won't die. My tone was firm as if I had just stated a truth. After all, in the future he would be prime minister, one person below the emperor but above 10,000. How could he die here? Juan's eyes widened in surprise. How can you know? I rolled my eyes around, then made something up off the top of my head. I saved him for a reason. Someone so handsome, who knows, after he wakes up and remembers my kindness, he might even marry me as his husband. My words were clearly just joking, yet Juan actually believed them. Her small face flushed red, her voice trembling. Jade, you truly have no shame. I nearly burst out laughing. Just this and already so embarrassed. If she knew that in the past I had led several maids from the manor to stroll through the pleasure quarters admiring flower lanterns, I fear she would blush all the way to her ears. Alright, don't prattle on anymore. Mother and sister are calling us back to eat. Go on, I said while pushing her outside. Han still wanted to say something more, but seeing me frown, she could only sigh once then turn and leave. When her figure gradually disappeared beyond the door, only then did I leisurely sit down and begin examining Liam's injuries. He was originally a young master from a prestigious family. The Tang clan was also an aristocratic household. Even as an orphan, he shouldn't have been reduced to wearing rags. Yet on his body was only a single long robe made of coarse cloth, tattered to the point wind could pass through every gap. The garment was stained with dried blood, not knowing whether it was his or someone else's. To see the wounds clearly, the only way was to remove the outer garment. I sighed softly. Just as I had undone the front of the robe, his eyes suddenly opened. Before I could react, that tall figure had sprung up, smoothly pressing me down onto the bed. I frantically grabbed at his clothing. The result pulled his outer robe completely open. A stretch of bare flesh appeared under the flickering lamplight. But completely contrary to imagination, it wasn't skin white as jade. Rather, it was densely covered with scars of various lengths crisscrossing across his chest, as if he had once been torn apart then stitched back together with blood and fire. He paid no attention to his own appearance, only coldly tightening his grip on my throat. His voice was like ice melting in the depths of winter. "Who are you?" His narrow eyes were sharp and cold to the point of making one's heart seize. In the room there was only one oil lamp flickering. He stood against the light, shadows swallowing half his face, looking no different from an evil spirit just stepped out from hell. Truly frightening. So different from the Liam of 20 years later that I had known. At that time he was refined and gentle as a spring breeze. Even when reprimanding me, his gaze still always carried a tender quality. Right now, all that remained before me was bone, chilling, killing intent. I was frightened to the point of wanting to push him away, but the strength in his hands was so great I could barely breathe. "Liam, quickly release me," I shouted, my voice hoarse. His gaze darkened further, his hand tightening even more. "So you do know me?" "I just heard others call you that," I answered in a fluster, both hands trying to pry at his wrist. If he continued squeezing, I feared I would truly suffocate. He leaned even closer, his voice raspy. "Who sent you? I don't understand what you're saying at all." My face reddened from lack of air. I struck at his chest while forcing myself to speak. "I saw you collapsed on the street, so brought you home." "Quickly let go. I'm about to be strangled to death by you." I don't know if it was because my words had an effect or because he saw my complexion had already turned purple. Finally he released his grip. I coughed violently, having to grip the edge of the bed to steady myself. "You truly are an ungrateful wretch. Had I known, I would have left you to die in the street." I glared at him, my voice both angry and trembling. He didn't respond, only silently watching me. That gaze was so dark and profound it made my heart skip a beat. I huffed indignantly and jumped down from the bed, intending to scold him a few more phrases. But when I turned my head back, my gaze inadvertently touched upon the wound bleeding at his shoulder. The words of reproach caught in my throat. "Why save me?" His voice rang out faintly, hoarse and low, carrying exhaustion. He sat leaning against the bed, head bowed low, shoulders trembling slightly. I looked to him for a very long time. Because he was Liam. Because I wasn't the type to see death and not save. There were hundreds and thousands of reasons in my heart, but when I opened my mouth, it transformed into one blunt phrase. "Because you're handsome." He stirred slightly, seeming to want to raise his head to look at me, but his body hadn't even lifted before collapsing back onto the bed. This time he truly fell unconscious. Liam lay in a coma for 2 full days. During those 2 days, I took everything of value in the house, from hairpins and jade ornaments to bracelets, even copper pots and porcelain bowls, to the market to sell, all just to buy medicine to save him. Juan stared at me wide-eyed, her voice trembling. "Jade, have you gone mad?" I only smiled faintly. How could she understand? As long as I could firmly grasp the future Prime Minister's coattails, what did this bit of silver matter? "I have no money." Liam leaned against the bed, drinking the last cup of medicine, then coldly uttering these few words. I had already searched his person. Indeed, there wasn't a single coin. I wasn't particularly concerned, smiling mockingly. Going out without money is normal enough. But look, my house now has nothing left to sell. Tomorrow buying medicine will also become a problem. How about you go home and get some? As everyone knows, the Tang clan is wealthy. Just a flick of the hand, and I'd have enough to spend for years. He set down the medicine bowl, raised his head to look at me, his tone cold. "I have no home." Those words were like mockery. I flushed with anger, stepping back 2 paces, taking a deep breath to suppress my temper. Young Master Tang, don't joke. I forced an awkward smile. If you can't get money, forget medicine. Even I will have to starve to death alongside you. Indeed, in the house there wasn't even a grain of rice left. I had originally calculated that once Liam woke, the Tang clan would send people to provide support. From there I would skim off some silver for myself. Who would have thought he would dawdle like this, intending to renege on his debt? He only silently watched me, not responding once. It seemed he was determined not to pay. I pretended to remain calm, saying, "Must be that young Master Tang's injuries are severe, inconvenient to return home. That's also fine." I turned, intending to go out to the courtyard, preparing to the Tang residence myself to collect. After just 2 steps, turning my head back, I saw him still sitting there unconcerned. Only when I had walked out to the courtyard did he finally say indifferently, "If you want to die, then go." Who would be frightened by that? I wasn't the type easily intimidated. The Tang residence was located in Guyan Lane, occupying an entire block. Just looking from outside, one could tell how wealthy the Tang clan was. Standing before the gate, even just pretending to be a lost beggar passing by, one could still receive a few decent coins. "Jade, is the person you picked up really the young master of the Tang clan?" Huan hid behind a corner of the wall, worriedly pulling at my hand. I nodded. "But look at those servants, all dressed in silks and brocades," she sighed. Liam's outer appearance was ragged and filthy. If not for his exquisitely beautiful face, looking at him was truly no better than looking at a slave. I naturally understood this, but the fact that he was the legitimate bloodline of the Tang clan didn't change because of a tattered robe. His words, "If you want to die, then go," still echoed in my head, indifferent yet cold, not at all like an empty threat. "Huan, are we still going?" she asked worriedly when she saw I had been silent for too long. I looked at her and smiled. "Not going. I'll think of another way. Right now Huan and I are just commoners. If the Tang clan truly has shadowy power, barging in would likely be bringing harm upon ourselves. Wiser not to risk our lives over a few coins. How about I secretly take some rice from the house to bring to you?" Huan finally voiced this suggestion. I sighed softly, intending to refuse when I suddenly raised my head and saw father walking into a flower pavilion. During these days busy caring for Liam, I had forgotten one thing. Father was the true god of wealth in this household. "No need. Sister, go back first. I already have a way." I patted Huan's hand reassuringly, then walked alone toward the flower pavilion. Daishuan Pavilion, the most famous pleasure house in the capital, where renowned courtesans sang and danced, I also frequented often. Unexpectedly my father was also fond of this place. "Miss, you must have come to the wrong place." Just as I set foot through the door, the madam hurriedly rushed out to greet me. I glanced around, not bothering with pleasantries, walking straight up to the second floor. Amidst the sounds of protest from behind, I kicked open the door of a private chamber. The person inside hadn't even managed to stand steady before startling and falling to sit on the ground. "Young master, it's the young lady from the other day who praised you." My father's attendant Sui Tong quickly helped him up, lowering his voice to remind him. "Second young master, this young lady insists on seeing you." The madam behind me smiled awkwardly, drenched in sweat. My father glanced at me, then at the madam, after which Sui Tong waved his hand for everyone to withdraw. I casually walked over, leisurely sitting down across from him. He lifted his teacup, his tone calm. "Does this young lady know me?" I shook my head. "Then why are you looking for me?" He took a sip of tea. I propped my chin on one hand, the other hand extended before him, casually saying, "Give me some money." Paffed. A mouthful of tea sprayed straight onto me. I frowned, sighing with regret. "These are clothes I just bought today. You must compensate me 20 taels of silver." My father used his sleeve to wipe the corner of his mouth, then slammed the table and stood up abruptly, pointing at me. You think this young master is so easily deceived?" I propped my chin, blinking at him with a smile. "Young master, she's the young lady from the other day who praised you." Sui Tong standing behind spoke quietly, his tone cautious. "She's the only person in this world who has ever praised you." My father glared at him sharply. "You can't see? She came to extort money. The other day was probably the same." Sui Tong turned to ask me, his voice carrying some suspicion. "Is that true?" Both simultaneously looked at me. In those gazes lingered a trace of fragile hope, making one unable to help but laugh. Truly unlike the prestigious father with illustrious military achievements I'd heard tales of. On the contrary, he looked no different from a foolish, naive youth, laughably simple. I smiled and shook my head slightly. The praise was real. Both pairs of eyes brightened at once. As for the money matter, I truly do want it. Immediately both faces darkened in unison. I knew it. My father snorted coldly, his face elongating. Sui Tong, throw her out. Wait, I raised my hand to stop him, my voice calm. Sui Tong hesitated slightly, not daring to move. I tilted my head to look at my father, my tone sincere. I'm not asking for this money for nothing. I can read your fortune. My father narrowed his eyes, his voice sarcastic. So you're a fraud. He jutted his chin, signaling Sui Tong. Haven't thrown her out yet. Wait, I spoke up, my voice more forceful. Don't you want to know your own future? I'm very accurate at fortune telling. My father leisurely picked up a peanut from the table, tossing it in his mouth, his gaze half smiling, half contemptuous. This young master's future. What's there to divine? 3 wives and 4 concubines, teasing cats and dogs, wealthy and comfortable. That's enough. No, no, no. I pressed my hands on the table, leaning toward him, my tone leisurely yet firm. Your future will be filled with meritorious deeds, respected by 10,000 people. Granted the title of Marquis of Eternal Frost. My father froze, his eyes widening wide, then in just a blink his entire face flushed red. I crossed my arms smugly, watching him flail his limbs while gaping as if unable to believe his own ears. Impossible. Su Tong cried out in alarm, clearly also not believing. My father's face turned red to purple, flailing wildly like someone who'd lost his soul. I grabbed his wrist, my voice serious. It's true. My father jerked his hand away, turning to grab Sui Tong, shaking him back and forth like a madman. Sui Tong, did you hear? Sui Tong grimaced, asking in a fluster. Young master, are you so happy you've fainted? Choked on something. My father clutched his throat, face bright red, breathing raggedly, looking utterly pitiful. The room immediately descended into chaos. Sui Tong ran to fetch water, then patted his back, then called for people, busy as a puppet on strings. Seeing father about to stop breathing, I immediately embraced him from behind, shaking hard. After shaking for a while, the obstruction in his throat finally shot out. But his face grew even redder. I worriedly leaned closer, my voice full of concern. Is there still something stuck in your throat? I wished I could pry his mouth open to look. Who would have thought he'd step back a full pace, staring at me wide-eyed, his ears and neck turning completely red. Miss, he stuttered, his voice trembling. Men and women should maintain proper distance. For her to do that, what propriety remains? He clutched his teacup tightly, both embarrassed and angry, his speech stuttering to the point of being comical. Something's wrong. Clearly there's something off here. I slammed the table hard, extinguishing all his wandering thoughts, then extended my hand. All right then. In that case, give me more silver. Whether from embarrassment, gratitude, or simply to escape from me, my father said not another word. He turned to signal. Sui Tong reluctantly handed over all the money on his person to me. I held the money pouch. The heavy weight my hand filled my heart with joy. You're truly a good person. I paused for a beat, my smile deepening. Father, he nearly choked on his tea again. I turned to leave, waving my hand. Next time I'll come find you again. What's your name? His voice rang out from behind, full of bewilderment. Jade, I answered, a smile flashing across my face. My house is on Willow Lane. If you need anything in the future, just come find me. When I left Dishuan Pavilion, the sky had already grown dim. I conveniently stopped by a medicine shop to buy 2 more portions of medicine for Liam before leisurely returning home. However, just as I pushed open the door and stepped inside, I immediately froze. The house was empty. He had disappeared. Ungrateful wretch. I ground my teeth, throwing the medicine package to the ground. I was still worried he wouldn't take medicine and would die. Who would have thought he'd quietly leave, as if I had never existed in this world? So what if he's a top scholar? So what if he's Prime Minister? He's just a heartless wolf. I cursed until my throat went hoarse, when suddenly rustling sounds came from the courtyard. I turned my head and he appeared at the door. Moonlight cast down, illuminating his pale gaunt face, strangely thin. Whether from old injuries or something else, he looked like a faint shadow in the night. Oh, coming back for what? I raised my eyebrows, my tone sarcastic. He silently walked in. A faint scent of blood drifted in the air. Walking straight before me, he slammed a money pouch heavily on the table. I don't owe you any more. After speaking, he turned to leave. Reaching the door, he suddenly stopped, his hand gripping the doorframe, his voice low. Places like Dishan Pavilion, don't go anymore. I raised my head intending to say something. But when the lamplight shone on his back, I saw clearly the long streaks of blood staining it. Before I could call out, he collapsed, falling unconscious in the courtyard. I sighed. But in the end, I still had to grit my teeth and help him back to the bed. For the sake of this money pouch, I'll consider you fortunate. Seeing his clothes soaked with blood, I frowned. Why are you injured again? He closed his eyes slightly, his breathing heavy, not answering. I sat down intending to reach out to examine the wound. But just as I touched him, his ice-cold hand gripped mine tightly. I am just checking the wound, I explained awkwardly, my heart pounding wildly, not understanding why. He released his hand, his voice hoarse. Men and women should be different. Let me do it myself. Compared to the first day we met, his voice had become calmer, also shedding some of its wariness. Following his words, I had to retreat to sit by the table, a distance from the bed. In the room only one oil lamp flickered, dim light cast on the wall, his shadow stretched long. The motion of rolling up his sleeves was slow yet firm. Blood seeped through the white bandages. I sat at the table, my gaze involuntarily following his movements. The profile of his face in the lamplight showed a cold determination, a single person, an entire night, treating wounds without a sound. I don't know when I dozed off leaning on the table. In my dream, I seemed to return to 20 years later, to that afternoon when I crashed into Liam. At that time, his voice was gentle, his gaze warm, completely different from now. When I woke, it was already bright outside. I rubbed my eyes, looking toward the bed. He was still sitting there, but already changed into clean clothes, as if nothing had happened. Why didn't you wake me? I asked, my voice still carrying the hoarseness of just waking. He didn't look at me, only faintly said, "You were sleeping soundly." That phrase inexplicably made my face heat up. I hurriedly stood, wanting to say something to break the awkwardness. But at that moment urgent pounding came from outside the door. Jade, something terrible happened. Juan's panicked voice rang out. I frowned, exchanging glances with Liam, both seeing wariness in each other's eyes. What happened? I opened the door. Juan stood outside, her face pale. Barrett brought people. He says if you don't come out, he'll burn down the house. My heart sank. This scoundrel truly wouldn't let things go. What to do? Juan grabbed my hand, her voice trembling. I was about to speak when Liam's voice came from behind. Let them in. I turned back to look at him. He had already stood up, though his complexion was still pale, his gaze remained firm. No. You're injured. It's not appropriate to face them. I shook my head. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Don't worry. I won't die yet. This calm tone for some reason made me feel at ease. I took a deep breath, turned to tell Juan, let them in. Before long, Barrett strutted in with several people. Seeing me, a malicious smile immediately appeared on his face. Jade, I've given you face, yet you refuse to appreciate it today. I'll let you understand what happens when you offend me. His gaze swept around, finally landing on Liam beside me. Who is this? Another wild man you picked up. I was about to retort when Liam had already stepped forward, standing in front of me. His voice was cold. Barrett, you're not worthy of her. Barrett's expression instantly darkened. A mere beggar dares lecture me. He turned to the people behind him. Beat him for me. Beat him until his own mother wouldn't recognize him. Several burly men immediately stepped forward. I wanted to stop them but was pulled back by Liam. He shook his head at me, his gaze calm. Then he turned toward those people. Though alone, in that instant, I saw something terrifying in his eyes. That was killing intent. Pure, undisguised killing intent. Those men clearly also sensed it. Their steps involuntarily slowed. Barrett impatiently shouted, "What are you standing there for? Go." Just as those people were about to rush forward, Liam's voice rang out faintly. I am Liam of the Tang clan. If you dare touch me, think about whether your entire families can bear the consequences. That statement made everyone freeze. Barrett's expression became even uglier. The Tang clan, he sneered. So what? You're just a stray dog the Tang clan doesn't want. Even if I kill you here today, what can they do? That was the truth. Truth from 20 years later. But now I temporarily brought out those words to scare him. Who knows if it would work? Hearing this, Barrett smirked. His gaze swept from head to toe over Liam, laughing mockingly. Looking at you, you do seem somewhat familiar. Someone leaned close to Barrett's ear, speaking quietly. It's the killing star of the Tang clan. The moment those two words Tang clan were uttered, the surrounding crowd immediately changed expression. Even officials at court, hearing the surname Tang, had to show some respect. Yet within that illustrious, prestigious family there was someone called a killing star. I couldn't help but turn my head slightly toward Liam. Under the dim evening light, he only stood still, his face calm without the slightest ripple, as if all insults had nothing to do with him. Barrett laughed coldly, his tone contemptuous. Thought who it was? Turns out it's that killing star who cursed his parents to death, nearly kicked out of the Tang clan. Now you want to bite me too. Right, his parents did die early, but I'd never heard people call him by such a cruel name. Perhaps because later when he stood at such heights, those vicious words all vanished with time. Shut your foul mouth. I couldn't hold back anymore. I stepped forward, my voice full of anger. A face like a rotten pig, yet you dare criticize others. Barrett's smug smile immediately froze on his lips. Jade, do you really treasure him so? He's merely mongrel blood the Tang clan discarded. Today I'll beat him half to death. He hadn't even finished speaking when smack, a crisp slap landed squarely on his face. You're not allowed to speak of him like that. That slap, he couldn't dodge in time. He could only clutch his cheek, his eyes blazing with fury. Damn it! He roared, raising his hand to strike back. But before his hand could descend, a gray-robed figure already pulled me into an embrace, simultaneously sweeping out with a kick. Barrett was sent flying backward, falling flat on the ground, crying out in pain. Liam stood blocking in front of me, his posture straight, his gaze cold as ice and snow. He took another step forward. I'll kill you right here. I raised my head to look at him. Dim lamplight cast of half that cold face, elegance and killing intent merged into one, beautiful to the point of making one's heart tremble. Barrett sat on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of saliva, grinding his teeth. You mongrel, you dare. He doesn't dare. A low voice full of authority rang out from outside the courtyard. But I dare. I peeked my head out from behind Liam. Sure enough, my father and Sui Tong were walking in. Barrett froze, his face turning deathly pale, his voice trembling. Shen, second young master. My father waved the paper fan in his hand, affecting an air of cultured elegance. Walking to where I was, conveniently stepping hard on Barrett's hand that was braced against the ground. Did I arrive too late? I smiled. Just in time. With father backing me, I indeed felt I could hold my head a bit higher. My father smiled faintly, waving his fan a few more times then flicking his hand. Sui Tong, throw him out. Sui Tong glanced at my father, his eyes seeming to say, causing trouble again. Wait, I called out to stop him. He dared curse Liam. Pull out all his teeth for me. I assumed the bearing of a domineering young lady, glancing at father out of the corner of my eye. My father paused, his look incredulous. I bared my teeth in a smile. He cleared his throat once then casually waved his fan. Listen to her. Sui Tong silently sighed, obediently complying. After the courtyard was cleaned up, the entire room suddenly became strangely quiet. My father Juan and Liam sat around a wooden table. 4 gazes met. Everyone remained silent, the atmosphere awkward to the point it could be sliced into pieces. Finally it was still Juan who broke the silence. Jade, how do you know second young Master Shen? Met him at Dishuan Pavilion. I answered without thinking. Puffed. All 3 people across from me simultaneously sprayed tea straight into my face. Truly without manners. I wiped my face, glaring at the lot of them through gritted teeth. My father coughed, waving his hands frantically. It's not that meaning. We don't have that kind of relationship. I just happened to meet her. I also rarely go to Dishuan Pavilion. Liam lifted his teacup, glancing at him, the corner of his mouth curving up, his tone indifferent. The reputation of second young Master Shen, who in this world doesn't know. That seemingly light phrase was as heavy as a cold sharp blade and biting. My father hearing this, his complexion darkened, laughing coldly in response. Compared to young Master Tang's reputation, mine is still somewhat cleaner. I sat to one side, silently lamenting. Needless to say, I knew my father and Liam had likely formed a grudge from here on. When Liam left the room, only then did I go over to ask quietly. Did you and he know each other before? My father crossed his arms, snorting coldly. Never met, only heard of him. Then why do you hate him so much? He frowned, his voice low and deep. Don't know. Just find him unpleasant. Male intuition. You wouldn't understand. He's definitely not any good type. I silently watched that figure's back at the window. Liam in later years was upright and honest, wholehearted for the people, ascending to the position of prime minister yet remaining untainted by the dust of power. How could he be called not good? Only I had to admit one thing. My father truly hated him. Since I've had memories until now, I rarely saw these 2 people willing to sit at the same dining table like right now. I picked up a portion of food and placed it in each person's bowl, my tone casual. Both your reputations aren't particularly good. In that case, you should help each other, shouldn't you? Now gathering both these figures in one place was no different from gathering all the heavenly opportunities. Naturally I had to know how to make use of them. One person targeting the title of Marquis, another burning the midnight oil pursuing fame and achievement. As long as they succeeded and became famous, pulling me along to soar high would be the proper way. Speaking of the Marquisate, my father only shook his head and laughed. What's so good about being heir apparent? As I am now is best, free and unrestrained, not subject to constraints. Elder brother treats me quite well. I was so angry my words caught. I just wanted to smash the bowl on his head to wake him up. On the other side, Liam's lips curved slightly in a smile. A smile so cold it made the air in the room seem to sink. What are you laughing at? My father glared at him, his voice already carrying some irritation. He leisurely picked up a piece of food I had just placed in his bowl, slowly saying, "Treats you quite well. If I remember correctly, last month a woman with child came looking for you, didn't she?" My father frowned. "What does that have to do with my elder brother? So that woman is indeed carrying your child?" Liam asked back, his tone as calm as if discussing court affairs. My father hurriedly waved his hands, stuttering. "She was violated by someone else. Afraid of public censure, so she came to me for protection." Liam raised his eyebrows, his gaze half smiling, half mocking. "In this capital, young masters and heirs are countless. Why didn't she find anyone else but came to find you? If she only wanted help, why cause such commotion before the Marquis's manor gates?" He smiled coldly. "Second young Master Shen truly is a good person. The junior official who died young last year must have also sought your protection. The maidservant who ran away must have also wanted your protection. Even young Master's son whom you beat until he cried out at the Court of Judicial Review was probably also due to your protection." Each word he spoke was like a sharp knife peeling away layers of pretense. I was stunned, then burst out laughing, not only because of his shrewdness but because what he said was simply too good. My father was rendered speechless, his face red as beet, only able to lower his head and rotate his rice bowl to lessen his embarrassment. After a long while, he finally stiffened his voice. "If it truly was my elder brother, why would he need to do that?" Liam raised his eyes, his tone cold and indifferent. "You're a concubine-born son. He's also a concubine-born son. If you didn't carry a ruined reputation, could he sit securely in the heir apparent seat?" One phrase exposed the very root. Irrefutable. I looked at him, secretly impressed in my heart, worthy of being one favored by 2 generations of emperors. This mouth was both beautiful and sharp as a blade. "You should learn from him," I said to my father, my face stern like a teacher instructing a student. "Learn from Liam." My father glared wide-eyed. "What's the use of being so clever? Still can't take the examination?" I was stunned. "Can't take it, why?" Liam's fingers holding the chopsticks trembled slightly, pale white in a strange way. He didn't speak. Father answered for him. "Last year he just passed the scholar examination when he was diagnosed with a hidden affliction. Someone in the Tang clan accidentally let it slip. Thus he lost his qualification to continue the exams." Hidden affliction. I tilted my head. "What affliction?" Father lowered his voice. "It's mysterious. They say when the illness strikes, severe chest pain, sometimes going mad and biting people. Terrifying. You should stay away from him." While speaking, he quietly edged his chair farther away. I looked at Liam. He remained calm as always, showing no signs of madness. "Impossible." I set down my chopsticks. "Absolutely, it's all false." After all, I knew clearly that later on he not only passed as top scholar but also became prime minister. How could he be someone with an affliction? But he tightened his grip on the chopsticks slightly, his gaze lowering, his voice hoarse. "It's real. Even he believes it so." I anxiously grabbed his hand, speaking quickly. "No, it's false. Listen to me. I know fortune-telling. I calculated that you won't only pass as top scholar but will also become a high official." He raised his head to look at me. Those jet black eyes suddenly stirred slightly, like a lake surface just rippled by spring wind. "You also said I would become a marquise." My father's face turned cold, using his chopsticks to push my hand away. I pretended to calmly withdraw my hand, smiling and saying, "That's right. That matter is also true. So you must also work hard." I looked at both of them, smiling in conclusion. "I believe in you both." Juan, who'd been sitting listening, immediately pulled my hand. "Jade, can you really tell fortunes?" I felt slightly uneasy but still puffed out my chest to answer. "Of course." She gripped my hand tightly, her eyes sparkling, then read my fortune. I seriously examined her face, then smiled. "Sister will definitely enjoy wealth and glory in the future. Life will be extremely wonderful." I thought silently. As long as Liam passed as top scholar, my father became a marquise, they pulled me along, I in turn would bring her. Never-ending wealth and glory was precisely like this. Hearing me say this, Juan's eyes brightened, smiling endlessly. A moment later, she tilted her head to ask further, her voice light as spring wind. Jade, where are you planning to go? I heard people say outside the city there's a reclusive elderly gentleman, formerly a renowned physician, medical skills brilliant, saved countless people. I immediately conceived the idea of wanting to invite that gentleman down the mountain to examine Liam's illness. Liam said all the physicians the Tang clan invited to examine him diagnosed him with a strange incurable disease. Even when he secretly went for examinations, he only received the same answer, beyond cure. But I knew this illness could absolutely be cured. It was just that he hadn't met the right person yet. Huan looked at me, asking softly, Jade, do you perhaps like young Master Tang? My footsteps halted. Like what like? Didn't I already say? Later on he'll become a high official. We must firmly grasp his coattails to be secure. I spoke very seriously, exactly like lecturing on life philosophy. Huan nodded but smiled mischievously. Then why are your ears so red? I startled, hurriedly waving my sleeve to fan myself. Just hot. It's too hot. To avoid her continuing to say more nonsensical words, I quickly walked faster, almost running. Not far outside the city gates, there was a low mountain hidden in morning mist. On that mountain, most famous was an unnamed Taoist temple, incense smoke year round never ceasing. Those praying for marriage, seeking wealth, seeking peace crowded into long lines. Huan and I avoided the main road, circling around the bamboo forest behind, following a small path going deep inside. Walking for ages, finally we saw a thatched roof hidden among ancient pine shadows. This was precisely the dwelling of that legendary old physician. He was sitting under the eaves playing chess with a Taoist. The Taoist had his back to me, his voice warm yet calm. Today we stop here. Tomorrow this poor Taoist will come again. About to lose, then you make excuses. Truly shameless. The old physician snorted, his beard trembling. That Taoist only smiled softly, holding his whisk as he stood, gliding past me. He moved light as a passing breeze. I tried to look but couldn't see his features clearly, only saw white robes flutter by, leaving behind a faint fragrance. You've ruined my good game. The old physician glared at me, fury blazing in his eyes. I wasn't afraid at all. I stepped forward to bow, my mouth smiling sweetly. Old gentleman, you wrong me. Clearly I saved you. Otherwise you'd have already lost. This girl speaks nonsense. Clearly I was about to win this game. The old man was so angry even his white beard trembled incessantly. I casually sat down in the spot the Taoist had just left, smiling faintly, reaching out to place a black piece on the board. Now you've lost. That chess game, I played with the old gentleman for 2 full days and nights. In the end, I won by precisely half a piece. The old physician looked at the board, sighing in admiration. Never thought a woman like you would have such profound chess skills. I shook my head smiling. My crude skills are nothing worth mentioning. It's just that I know someone far better than me. Oh, there's such a person in this world. There is. I sighed. It's just a pity that person suffers from a strange illness. I fear he won't live much longer. The old physician hearing this immediately frowned. Though he lost at chess, his medical skills he still prided himself above others. After I provoked him with a few phrases, he finally agreed to nod, consenting to treat Liam's illness with only one condition. I won't come down the mountain. If that person recovers, he must come up here to play a game with me. I was delighted, hurriedly saying immediately, fine. Don't say 1 game. 10 games would also be fine. Thus I answered on Liam's behalf immediately, then pulled Huan down the mountain. My heart joyful, wanting to report the good news at once. When I returned home, Liam was chopping firewood behind the house. His figure was thin yet his movements were decisive and skilled. Each axe stroke fell, wood chips flying, reflecting glittering sunlight. I stood by the door watching for a while, not knowing why my heart suddenly filled with a strange feeling. It seemed he also sensed my gaze. He turned his head back. He was covered in sweat. Beads of sweat fell to the ground, shattering like pearls. You're back. Where have you been these 2 days? His voice was indifferent, neither heavy nor light, yet somehow it made me momentarily feel like a married couple arguing over trivial matters. I startled, hurriedly walking forward. I found a reclusive physician. Medical skills extremely brilliant. He can completely cure your illness. Come with me quickly. After speaking, I immediately grasped his hand and pulled. But instead he gripped my hand. His fingers were cold yet burning hot, to the point I nearly let go from the shock. No rush, he spoke softly. Eat first. Words finished, he released his hand, carrying the bundle of firewood toward the kitchen. I stood frozen. Before I could respond, with a thud I collapsed onto a chair, so exhausted I couldn't open my eyes. I slept a very long sleep. In my dream, memories from my previous life surged like floodwater. That year I was 12 years old. I heard on the street there was a fierce tiger circus troupe. Craving fun, I skipped lessons to watch. Unexpectedly, the tiger suddenly went mad midway. Spectators panicked and fled. My legs turned to jelly, collapsing to sit on the ground, unable to move. In that instant, as the fierce beast charged straight at me, a figure descended from the sky. A flash of sword light. The fierce tiger was frightened back. I still sat in the dusty ground, raising my head to look at that tall, thin figure blocking before me. His body was frail and delicate. The hand gripping the sword hilt trembled slightly, but still he didn't step back. Finally, he turned his head against the light, smiling at me. His voice warm as early summer breeze. Miss Shen, skipping lessons for a day must be punished. That matter was very long ago, but I still clearly remember that day. The sun was dazzlingly bright. All the light poured down upon him. I had seen Liam in many different guises. He had only seen me exactly twice, and when I woke from that dream, beside my ear still lingered a deep voice, softly calling my name. Jade. Liam's voice rang out right beside my ear, deep yet gentle, as if able to seep into one's heart. I slowly opened my eyes. He was sitting by the bed, his gaze falling on me, carrying a tenderness I'd never seen before. You're awake, he spoke softly, helping me sit up. I rubbed my eyes, still somewhat dazed. How long did I sleep? 2 days, he answered, picking up a bowl of medicine from the table, handing it to me. This is medicine the old gentleman prescribed. Drink it while it's warm. I took the bowl, the bitter medicinal scent drilling into my nose. But seeing his expectant gaze, I still drank it all in one go. He took the bowl, the corner of his mouth curving slightly. Good girl. That phrase made my face instantly flush. I hurriedly changed the subject. Did you go up the mountain? I did. He nodded. That old gentleman's medical skills are indeed superb. He said my illness can be cured. I was delighted, grabbing his hand. Really? He looked at me, his gaze deep. But he also said this illness wasn't congenital. Someone poisoned me. My smile froze on my face. Poisoned? Who would do such a thing? He didn't answer, only looking toward the window. Moonlight spilled in, casting his profile in an eerie coldness. I knew without asking. It must be someone from the Tang clan. My heart ached, gripping his hand tighter. Don't worry, no matter who it is, I'll help you find them. He turned back, looking at me. In those eyes flashed a complex emotion. Why are you so good to me? That question made me pause. Why? Perhaps because I knew his future. Knew he would become a person standing at the pinnacle. But at this moment, looking into those eyes, I suddenly realized perhaps it wasn't just that. I like you. The words slipped out before I could think. After saying them, I myself was startled. His eyes widened, clearly also not expecting me to say this. The air seemed to freeze. Only the sound of our breathing remained. After a long while, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Jade, I'm not worthy of you. I shook my head. That's for me to decide. He looked at me. His gaze seemed to want to see through to my heart. Finally, he slowly leaned forward. His lips gently touched my forehead, like a butterfly landing on a flower petal. Light yet making my heart race. I will work hard, he whispered by my ear, to become someone worthy of you. That night, we sat side by side in the courtyard, looking up at the stars filling the sky. Neither spoke again, but I knew everything had changed. The days that followed became busy. Liam followed the old physician's prescription, taking medicine daily, while I was busy investigating who poisoned him. My father also came to help, though he still didn't like Liam. For my sake he was willing to set aside prejudices. We discovered the poison came from within the Tang clan, and the person behind it was most likely the current head of the Tang household. He wanted to eliminate Liam, this potential threat. This is too dangerous. My father frowned. If we alert them, I fear he won't survive. I know, I answered. So we must be more careful. That day, I went to the Tang residence alone, using the excuse of delivering medicine. I wanted to personally see what kind of person could be so vicious toward their own flesh and blood. The Tang residence was even more magnificent than I imagined. Pavilions and towers, rockeries and ponds, everywhere displayed the bearing of an aristocratic family. But I knew beneath this glamorous exterior hid how much darkness. Miss, whom are you seeking? A servant stopped me. I'm here to deliver medicine to young Master Tang, I answered. The servant sized me up, suspicion in his eyes. Wait here. He turned to report inside. Before long, an elderly woman walked out, her appearance dignified, but her eyes carried a chilling coldness. You're the one who's been taking care of our young master. Her voice was neither warm nor cold. I nodded. She looked at me for a moment then sneered. A young woman of unknown origin dares harbor designs on our Tang family's young master. How bold. I wasn't angered, only smiled faintly. I don't understand what you mean. I'm only here to deliver medicine. She snorted coldly. Save your act. I've seen plenty of women like you, thinking you can climb the social ladder by clinging to our young master. Let me tell you, don't even dream of it. I looked at her, my voice calm. Whether I'm that kind of person, young Master Tang knows best. You have no right to judge me. Her expression darkened, about to speak when a voice came from behind. Mother, that's enough. I turned to look. A middle-aged man was walking toward us, dignified bearing, eyes sharp. This must be the head of the Tang household. He looked at me, his gaze probing. You're Miss Cheng. I nodded. Thank you for taking care of my nephew these days. His tone was polite but his eyes held no warmth. I could feel he was testing me. Don't mention it, I answered. Young Master Tang is very kind to me. I naturally should help. He smiled. But that smile didn't reach his eyes. Since that's the case, I have a request. I hope Miss Cheng can agree. What request? From today onward, please don't see my nephew again. His words were direct and without mercy. I was stunned. Why? He didn't answer, only looked at me meaningfully. You're a smart person. Should understand some things aren't for you to ask. I understood. He was warning me. If I continued to associate with Liam, there would be danger. But I wasn't afraid. I looked straight at him. If I refuse, his eyes turned cold. Then don't blame me for being impolite. The air instantly became tense. Just as I was about to speak, suddenly urgent footsteps sounded from behind. Uncle. Liam's voice rang out. I turned back. He was standing at the courtyard entrance, his face pale, eyes filled with anger. Don't threaten her. He walked toward us, each step firm. The head of the household frowned. Liam, this doesn't concern you. It does concern me. He stood in front of me. If you want to target someone, target me. Don't involve her. The head sneered. You think you have the right to negotiate with me? Liam looked at him, his voice cold. Perhaps not now, but one day, I will. That statement carried unshakable conviction. The head's expression changed, seeming not to expect him to be so resolute. Good. He spoke coldly. Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me. He turned to leave, but Liam called out to stop him. Wait. He turned back, his gaze sharp. What else? Liam took a deep breath. I know it was you who poisoned me. The head's pupils contracted, but quickly returned to normal. What nonsense are you spouting? Liam smiled coldly. Don't pretend. The physician has already examined me. This poison, only you and the entire Tang household could obtain. The head's face turned ashen. You dare accuse me? Liam didn't back down. I dare, and I will report this to the authorities. You. The head was so angry his body trembled. Good, very good. Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. He waved his hand. Immediately several guards rushed out. Take him. Lock him in the ancestral hall. Those guards approached. I wanted to stop them but was pulled back by Liam. Don't be impulsive, he whispered. Leave here, find my father, tell him everything that happened here. But, I was anxious. Trust me, he looked at me, eyes filled with determination. I'll be fine. I could only nod. Watching him being taken away, my heart filled with helplessness and rage, I immediately left the Tang residence, rushing to find my father. When he heard the whole story, he was also shocked. Too brazen, he said angrily, daring to poison his own nephew. We must save him. I grabbed his hand. Father nodded. Don't worry, I'll find a way. He immediately mobilized his connections, inquiring everywhere about the Tang household's affairs. Meanwhile, I went to find the old physician, hoping he could testify. The old physician heard my account and was also furious. How outrageous, he stroked his beard. To use such vicious poison on one's own blood. I will go testify. With his testimony, plus my father's connections, we finally stirred up the authorities. The Court of Judicial Review sent people investigate the Tang household. The truth gradually came to light. It turned out the head indeed poisoned Liam, all to prevent him from threatening his son's position. This matter caused a huge uproar in the capital. The Tang clan's reputation plummeted, and Liam was finally cleared. When I saw him again, he had lost considerable weight, but his eyes were brighter than ever. Thank you. He held my hand. If not for you, I would have already. I shook my head. Don't say that. We're in this together. He looked at me, his gaze gentle. Jade, are you willing to wait for me? I was stunned. He continued. Give me 3 years. 3 years later, I will definitely pass as top scholar. At that time, I'll formally propose marriage to your family. My nose felt sour. I nodded forcefully. I'm willing. That day, we made a promise under the moonlight. No matter what difficulties ahead, we would face them together. And my father, though still finding Liam somewhat disagreeable, seeing me so determined, could only sigh. Fine. He waved his hand. I'll help you both. But if that brat dares mistreat you, I'll definitely break his legs. I burst out laughing. Thank you, father. He glared at me. Don't thank me too early. Speaking of which, I heard he'll return to the capital in a few days to see you. My heart skipped. Really? He nodded. I also heard from others. Supposedly he wants to tell you something important. I was filled with anticipation, not knowing what he wanted to say. The days of waiting were long. Every day I counted on my fingers. Finally, that day arrived. I dressed carefully, waiting for him in the courtyard. When he appeared at the door, my heart nearly jumped out. He wore new clothes, no longer the tattered garments of before. The whole person looked spirited and handsome. Jade. He called my name, his voice gentle. I walked toward him, unable to hide my smile. You're here. He looked at me, his eyes full of tenderness. I have something to tell you. What is it? I asked. He took a deep breath. I've decided to take the imperial examination. My eyes lit up. Really? He nodded. For you? For our future? I must work hard. I was so moved tears nearly fell. I believe in you. You'll definitely succeed. He held my hand. With you by my side, I'm not afraid of anything. That day, we talked for a long time. From dreams to future, from past to present. I felt I was the happiest person in the world. When he was about to leave, I couldn't help calling out, Liam. He stopped, turning back. Be careful in all things. He smiled gently, nodded, then resolutely turned away. His figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. From that day, I didn't see him again. Only my father came running 3 days out of 5, as if afraid that Liam would return while he wasn't paying attention. Let me tell you, he nagged endlessly. A proper young lady allowing a man to stay overnight in her house. Won't that ruin your reputation? Hearing until my ears grew calluses, I could only pretend to be deaf. This talkative nature of his, even 20 years later, wouldn't change. Sui Tong, standing nearby, lowered his voice to sigh. Young master, you should worry about yourself instead. My father frowned. What's the matter? I released my ears, looking up. What happened? Sui Tong answered. A few days ago, young master said he'd practice martial arts while also investigating the heir's affairs in the military. Indeed, discovered the heir colluding with the Minister of War, but before finding evidence, was already punished by the Marquis. Why would the Marquis punish you for practicing martial arts? He should be happy. Happy he was. Even planned to bring young master to the Duke's manor for a banquet. But young master absolutely refused to go. I turned to look at father. He sighed, sitting down with a thud beside me, his voice heavy. Jade, tell me, if being heir means marrying someone you don't want to marry, doing things you don't like, then does that title of heir still have any meaning? A bad reputation, so what? It's just wind passing through one ear and out the other. Right now I can still sit here leisurely chatting with you. Isn't that already a great blessing? Gentle yet pressing words made me momentarily pause, not knowing how to respond. Actually, from before until now, I've been the one pulling him forward. I always remembered clearly that he would be a Marquis. So in my heart I took for granted he must be a Marquis, be someone with fame, status, power. Forgetting his own feelings toward Liam, I was also once like this. I thought I saw their forms 20 years later. Thought that was the path they wished to walk. But in fact, none of them had ever said that was their own wish. I gently patted father's shoulder, smiling warmly. You're right. People should live the way they themselves desire. He froze, then his eyes seemed to brighten. The gloom from earlier vanished. He gleefully pulled my hand, his voice excited. Come, I'll take you somewhere good. Before I could even ask, I was dragged away by him. And that good place naturally wasn't Dishuan Pavilion, but Shengxian Gambling House, the liveliest den in the city. We hadn't even stepped inside when we heard clamorous sounds from the alley echoing out. Husband, you've already pawned me. You must go with me. A crude man was pressing a woman into a corner of the wall. She wept miserably, despair flooding her sobs. Just as that filthy hand was about to touch her, a clear voice rang out. She doesn't want to. A figure leaped down from a high window. Skirts swirling gently, light as butterfly wings, like a lotus blossom blooming in the breeze. A corner of her veil was lifted by the wind, revealing a delicate nose bridge and lips red as rouge. Though just a glimpse, it was enough to know she was a peerless beauty. Where did this brat come from? The man glared. Her husband lost at gambling and pawned his wife to me. She doesn't want to. Who wants to? Or do you want to try? His words barely finished when he reached out, intending to tear off her face veil. My father was about to rush forward. But before he could step, the young lady had already twirled the jade flute in her hand. A crisp crack rang out. That man's hand seemed broken. He howled miserably, collapsing to the ground. The young lady spoke leisurely, her voice cold as frost. This is what this young lady rewards you. As for the debt her husband owes, I'll pay on her behalf. After speaking, She tossed a brocade pouch to the ground. My father immediately stepped forward. I intended to stop him but wasn't quick enough. He bent to pick up the brocade pouch, pulled out silver and threw it straight at that man's face, conveniently adding a kick. The young lady looked at him, her gaze mixing surprise and interest. Father respectfully returned the pouch, lest such filthy things defile Mrs. belongings. Just then, a maid ran over from afar, panting. Miss, you've run off again. She supported the young lady. The young lady only replied casually, dirty, throw it away. As she spoke, she glanced at that pitiful woman, advising softly, next time choose carefully. Don't ruin your whole life. Words finished, she turned to leave. The maid's voice still carried back on the wind. Miss, the old master is searching everywhere. Is it about the marriage arrangement with second young master of the Marquis Manor? She asked. Yes. The young lady snorted coldly. Forcing me to marry that coward. Better to let me stay at the country estate until I die. I only managed to see my father standing frozen in the wind, his expression suddenly becoming complex. I sighed inwardly. He's sick, lovesick, and suffering this illness along with him. I fear there's also me. That evening, father and daughter sat side by side in the courtyard, looking up at a pair of wild geese crossing the sky, both sighing in unison. Jade, father lamented. Tell me, what must I do for Wu to accept me? Good grief, just a few days and already calling her wooer. I knew clearly in the end mother would definitely comply with him. But temporarily I couldn't let him feel too comfortable. Don't know. I propped my chin, answering curtly, but looking at her manner that day, I fear she only likes heroes who stand tall between heaven and earth. Hero, he repeated in a daze. I smiled softly, changing the subject. Tell me, what is Liam doing right now? My father answered reflexively. Probably being punished. I startled, turning sharply. Being punished. Why? He slapped his forehead, suddenly remembering. Look at this brain of mine. I came today precisely to tell you about this. Yesterday the Tang residence was in turmoil. Heard that a minister's daughter fell into water at the Tang Manor. I jumped up, my heart burning like fire. Then what does that have to do with Liam? My father shrugged, his voice casual as could be. Of course it's related. When something happens in the manor, who else would they find to pin blame on, but an orphan with no one backing him? I clenched my fists tightly. That's right. In that world, those without power or influence, even if innocent, always bear the blame for others. I didn't have time to think, only knew to grab my skirts and run. Liam must be injured again. I have to save him. Outside the Tang residence, scenery remained peaceful as always. People and horses passing, servants' laughter echoing everywhere. Wealth and luxury as if this place had never touched a speck of dust. I followed the old path to the back courtyard, planning to climb the wall as usual, but just arriving, I saw in the corner of the wall a dog hole. I froze for a moment. Compared to climbing the wall, crawling through a dog hole was clearly much easier. Gritting my teeth, I bent low and squeezed through. On the other side of the wall was a secluded corner of the courtyard, grass growing thick, tiles covered in moss. If calling it quiet sounded elegant, but actually it was no different from abandoned. I was just about to step when I heard voices not far away. Liam, only knelt one night and already can't endure. A smug voice rang out, carrying an unpleasant mocking tone. I tiptoed along the narrow path, finding a crack in a rotted window, carefully boring a small hole. Inside the room, furnishings were simple. Nothing of value. A man stood by the bed, features bearing some resemblance to him. Must be his half-brother from the same father. Of course, I know it wasn't you who pushed Ruru into the water, he said, his voice full of sarcasm. But so what? Someone useless like you dares dream of her. Today I'll make you wish you were dead. After speaking, he pulled from his chest a small box, smiling wickedly. As long as you go mad right before Ruru, let's see if she can still pity you. On the bed, Liam sat leaning against a post, his back to me. His voice was hoarse and cold as winter wind. What do you want to do? That person slid his finger over the box lid, smiling in response. When Ruru arrives, you'll know. Just as that man left, I immediately gently pushed open the window and crawled in. Just as I touched the ground, a figure before me suddenly appeared. A pair of ice-cold hands gripped my throat tightly. I choked, only managing a hoarse cry. Liam. He startled and let go, his gaze panicked, face pale white as paper, cold sweat soaking his temples. Just a few days without seeing him, he had become so haggard it pained one's heart. Jade, he called me, his voice trembling. Why did you come here? I stood before him, lowering my head to look straight into those eyes. Under the dim candlelight, they reflected a watery gleam, weak and full of suffering. My heart tightened. I gently lifted his chin, forcing a smile, my voice half angry, half pitying. If I didn't come, wouldn't you be bullied to death? He spoke hoarsely, his lips trembling. Jade. Just those 2 words alone were like a knife gently cutting into my heart. I gripped his wrist tightly. I'm taking you away. But he instead grasped my hand back, his gaze confused. Wait just a moment. It'll be over soon. He knelt, looking up at me, his voice pleading. Can you wait for me outside? I shook my head. I'll stay. His eyes reddened further, trembling as he spoke quietly. I don't want you to see me go mad. I'm afraid I'll hurt you. That gaze, like a child lost in the long night, afraid of his own self. I choked up, wanting to say I wasn't afraid, but the words just reaching my lips caught in my throat. Finally, I only gently stroked his head, my voice soft as wind. All right, I'll wait outside. You must be safe. His eyes brightened for an instant. He smiled and nodded. A smile I would remember forever, weak yet gentle as that night's moonlight. I left the room, sitting outside the wall waiting. Time dragged long as an entire watch. The sky darkened gradually, cicada sounds fell silent. Only the sound of wind whistling through dry leaves remained. When night's curtain covered everything, only then was there movement in the courtyard. Noisy voices mixed with cursing. I couldn't bear it, crawling through the dog hole again. Hiding in the grass, I saw a group of people walking out from his room. Leading was that half-brother from earlier. Beside him a young lady in splendid clothes. Must be Ruru. Ruru, don't be afraid, that man spoke gently. Liam has suffered from a strange illness since childhood. From now we'll lock him up, not letting him harm you anymore. After speaking, he led her away. I only stood silently watching, my heart as if bound by vines, a choking pain surging to my throat. Waiting for them to go far, only then did I walk to the room's door. Candles on the stand flickered, shadows wavering. The room was in ruins, the scent of blood faintly drifting. Liam was tied to the bed. Thick ropes cut deep into his flesh, blood seeping into dark red streaks. His clothes torn, breathing labored. Liam. My voice trembled calling. Those crazed red eyes paused for an instant. I rushed forward to untie the ropes, hurriedly pulled a blanket to cover him. He gripped the blanket's edge, veins bulging on the back of his hand, breath ragged. In his eyes remained a trace of sanity. Go quickly, he whispered. Before finishing, he bit down hard on his lower lip. Blood flowed out, dripping onto the blanket. My tears couldn't be held back, crying while asking in a choked voice. The antidote, where is it? Liam, where's the antidote? He bit his lip tightly, complexion deathly pale. With great difficulty he forced out 2 words. Leave quickly. I shook my head, jumping up, frantically searching the entire room, hands and feet trembling, heart tangled like silk. When I touched a dagger hidden in the corner of the bed, hissed as I turned around, his figure had already lunged forward. I was pressed down onto the floor. Pain made me cry out softly. Moonlight outside the window merged with candlelight inside, reflecting on his face, making his entire person seem covered in an eerie light. Blood dripping from his forehead, staining his cheeks and neck red. Standing out against pale skin, both tragic and ghostly to the point of terror. Liam, I called out trembling. My wrist was gripped so tightly by him it hurt. In the throes of spasms he had completely lost all reason. Eyes blood, red like a cornered beast, he bent down to bite hard into my shoulder. Liam, I screamed out, tears mixing with pain, crying while cursing. When you wake up, I'll make you pay. Hearing this, he suddenly stopped. I thought he'd woken. Who would have thought he'd lean down to bite my lips? A thick metallic taste spread in my mouth. Blood flavor. In that instant, I couldn't distinguish whose blood was his, whose was mine. Only heard clearly the sound of my own heart pounding as if about to explode. Seeing me not moving, he gradually released, his eyes still murky, seeming to want to find somewhere else to continue biting. Right then, I glimpsed on his arm a pitch, black insect crawling in winding paths beneath the skin. My heart seemed to stop. Without time to think, I grabbed the knife and slashed hard across his arm, blocking its path. He jerked up from pain, breathing raggedly. I wiped blood from my lips, gripping his hand tightly, pressing the wound's mouth close together. Sure enough, the insect was lured by the blood scent, poking its head out from the gash. Without hesitation, I snatched it, throwing it hard to the ground, then stomping repeatedly. Cracking sounds rang out gruesomely. The insect writhed several times, then stopped moving. Liam, it's dead, right? I cried while turning back, my voice trembling. But he had already collapsed on the bed, unconscious from who knows when. Biting then sleeping, truly knows how to act spoiled. My father arrived to find me struggling to pull and drag Liam through the dog hole. He squatted on the other side looking at me, asking in surprise. What happened to your mouth? I huffed irritably, continuing to pull, answering in frustration. He bit me. My father's eyes widened. How could that be? If he bites people, it should be like a rabid dog. Why only such a small mark? After pulling Liam Tang outside, he glanced at his lips, then at mine. In the end, did he bite you or did you bite him? I followed his gaze downward. Indeed saw on Liam's lips clear tooth marks stained with blood. Turns out he bit himself. Liam slept soundly for 2 full days. The old physician said the Gu insect in his body had been eliminated. Only the poison had developed for so long, depleting his blood and ki. He needed to recuperate on the mountain for a while. Thought you were so clever. My father snorted coldly, propping his hand on his knee. In the end, I sat to one side, not arguing, only silently watching Liam's sleeping face. Candlelight cast on his features, pale yet serene, as if all pain had temporarily left him. I gently held his hand, fingers interlaced. This time I won't let you face danger alone again. Those days on the mountain were the most peaceful time I'd had since arriving in this era. Every day rising with the sun, sleeping with the moon, playing chess with the old physician, tending the medicine garden with Liam. Occasionally father would send letters, each letter filled with boasting about his achievements. Yet between the lines one could read his longing for mother. I replied to each letter, reporting peace, reassuring him. Also occasionally adding fuel to the fire, mentioning mother's recent activities. Watching him anxiously reply, I couldn't help but find it amusing. Jade. One day Liam called me while we were playing chess. I raised my head. He looked at me, his gaze serious. If one day I become successful, will you be willing to marry me? That question made me pause. The chess piece in my hand nearly dropped. I looked at him. He also looked at me. In those eyes was unprecedented seriousness and expectation. My voice was a bit hoarse. He leaned forward slightly. I know I'm not worthy of you now, but I will work hard to become someone deserving of you. His voice was gentle yet firm, making my heart race uncontrollably. But I couldn't agree, because I knew clearly if we married, I would die. That prophecy still lingered in my mind. I couldn't let him lose me again, so I could only smile, placing the chess piece. We'll talk about that later. He looked at me, his gaze dimming slightly, but he didn't press further, only nodded, then continued focusing on the chess game. But I knew he was disappointed. My heart also ached, but I had no other choice. Time on the mountain passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had gone by. Liam's body had completely recovered. Even the old physician said he'd never seen someone recover so well. It's time to return to the capital. The old physician stroked his beard. Your body is already fine. Staying on the mountain won't help anymore. Moreover, the imperial examination is approaching. You should prepare early. Liam nodded, looking at me. Jade, shall we go down the mountain? I stood up. All right, let's go home. That word, home, made his eyes brighten instantly. He held my hand, walking toward down the mountain. Sunlight filtered through tree gaps, casting mottled light and shadow. Our shadows stretched long on the mountain path, intertwined inseparably. Returning to the capital, everything seemed to have changed yet remained the same. Father had already become a marquis. Mother also agreed to his proposal. Wedding date set for next spring. And Liam, through his own efforts, gradually gained a foothold in court. Although still a minor official, everyone could see his future was limitless. We moved into a small house in the north part of the city. Not large but cozy. Every day I would prepare meal waiting for him to return from court. He would tell me about court matters. I would share with him interesting things from the market. Such days were plain yet fulfilling. But I knew this peace wouldn't last long. Because I clearly remembered, in the original timeline, it was precisely this year that the incident occurred. That incident that changed everything. I must prevent it, no matter the cost. So I began secretly investigating, looking into all those who might harm Liam. This investigation revealed some clues. It turned out within the Tang household, there was still someone who wanted him dead. And that person was precisely the current head's son, the heir of the Tang family. He feared Liam would threaten his position, so he had been plotting in secret. After learning this information, I immediately told Liam. He listened quietly. His expression didn't show much surprise. It seemed he'd long anticipated this. I know, he spoke softly. So I've been preparing. Preparing for what? I asked. He looked at me, his gaze profound. Preparing to completely eliminate this hidden danger. His words made my heart skip. You want to? He nodded. Only by eliminating him can I truly be safe, can protect you. That statement carried unshakable determination, but also made me worried. This is too dangerous. I grabbed his hand. If you're not careful, He gently held my hand. Don't worry, I have a measure. I looked at him, finally could only nod. All right, but you must promise me you must be safe. He smiled. Promised. That night, we sat together playing chess. He suddenly spoke. Jade, do you trust me? I raised my head. Of course I trust you. He looked at me, his gaze gentle. Then no matter what happens, don't doubt me. I was stunned, about to ask when he had already made his move. Jade, checkmate. He smiled. I looked at the board. Indeed I'd lost. He nodded slightly. His gaze seemed to have countless small rays of light flickering within. Right then, my father, who'd disappeared for days, suddenly rushed over, swinging his hand, sending the chessboard shattering into pieces. I was so angry I nearly threw a cup at his head. He only scratched his head, his expression both proud and excited. I came to announce I'm joining the military. What? I froze. He thumped his chest confidently. I remembered what you said. Wooer likes heroes who stand tall between heaven and earth. Moreover now she's busy with 100 affairs, doesn't notice me. I must seize this time to go to the frontier, establish merit and fame, then return to marry her. He spoke with absolute certainty, as if only lacking the step of wedding mother. I frowned, unable to suppress my worry. The frontier is constantly at war. Very dangerous. I couldn't help trying to dissuade him. He shook his head. I'm not afraid. Just help me watch over Wooer in the capital. I was about to advise further when Liam gently gripped my hand. His gaze was calm yet unusually steady. My father also noticed. From his chest he pulled out a dragon-shaped token and tossed it to him. This is the imperial token my aunt granted. When you take the examination in 5 years, you'll need someone to certify your body is healthy. When that time comes, just carry this token into the palace to find my aunt. Ask for Imperial Physician Chen to examine you. With this token, all doors will open. No one will dare obstruct. After speaking, he seemed to feel he'd been too kind to Liam, so he pretended to be fierce, snorting coldly. I'm not doing this for you. But remember, you must treat Jade very well. Hard mouth, soft heart was always his nature. From before until now, still the same. To make the farewell more ceremonious, he even brought several jugs of fine wine up the mountain. Said we must drink until drunk before he'd leave. The result, the first person drunk was him. Hugging the wine jug, my father slurred. Jade, the first time I met you, I felt something was strange. Yet I couldn't bring myself to dislike you. That feeling was as if in a previous life we'd had some connection. I smiled, holding my own jug, answering softly. Perhaps in a previous life you were actually my father. Hearing this, he laughed heartily, nearly rolling to the ground. I see you're truly drunk, even taking advantage of me. I only smiled foolishly, saying nothing more. He again raised the jug toward the foot of the mountain and shouted loudly. For Wooer, I must definitely become a great hero. The shout still echoing on the mountain when Sui Tong had to carry him down. I watched the two figures gradually disappear into the night. Turning around, I fell into Liam's embrace. Drank too much. His voice was soft as wind, carrying a hint of laughter, falling from above into my ear. I raised my head. I saw the bright moon hanging right above his head. Gentle and clear, reflecting on that refined face, making him at first glance like cool wind and clear moon. I reached out to pinch his cheek lightly, mumbling, Liam, you really are. Decades won't change you. He was slightly stunned. What? I waved my hand, giggling foolishly twice. Nothing. Just wanted to praise you, like green pines in snow. Steadfast. And I really like that. He caught my hand, warm fingertips gently stroking the back of my hand. His voice soft as aged wine. Jade, if you like it, then when I succeed, shall we marry? Words light as wind, yet my heart suddenly skipped a beat. I hazily nodded, but just a gust of cold wind passed, my mind cleared. We can't. His gaze darkened, voice dropping. Can't? I leaned close to his chest, my voice drunk and hazy. We can't marry. I only want to be with you forever. Because after marrying, I'll die. I don't want to die. From that night on, Liam didn't mention marriage again. Sometimes I even wondered, perhaps that proposal was just an illusion in drunkenness. Or a promise that drifted away with moonlight, vanishing in the long night. At first I still worried about how to explain to him, but he was silent. He didn't ask. I also pretended as if I'd never heard. Autumn faded, spring arrived. Time passed quick as a passing breeze. In the blink of an eye, the examination period arrived. According to plan, Liam carried the token father gave him into the palace. I thought he would only go to beg noble consort Lai to ask an imperial physician to certify him. Who would have thought he personally met the emperor? That year when he fell ill fleeing the Tang household, people in the Tang residence all thought he'd died on some street corner. Yet now he appeared openly in the examination grounds, causing the entire capital to buzz. Liam has suffered from a strange illness since childhood. Everyone clearly saw he didn't have the qualifications to take the exam. His cousin stood in the courtyard, pointing and cursing directly. I heard the news and nearly rushed to slap that person. But Liam only calmly pulled from his sleeve a golden imperial edict. What did you say? Imperial physician Chen was someone the emperor personally summoned. Can the physician you found compare? One sentence silenced everyone. With the imperial edict in hand, which examination official dared disobey? Sure enough, everything unfolded exactly as I'd predicted. Liam passed as top scholar and was especially valued by the emperor. My father, hearing the news, wrote back. Every word both envious and sour, beating around the bush, only afraid his own glory would be stolen. Days passed peacefully. In the blink of an eye, a full year had passed. Now Liam was already a fourth-rank minister, concurrently serving as junior preceptor to the crown prince. Not only reclaiming all his parents' estate, but also suppressing the Tang family until they couldn't breathe. He and I lived in a small house in the north part of the city, occasionally with Juan and Mother going out to wander, view scenery, drink tea, admire flowers. Mother still firmly opposed, her voice both stern and carrying some worry. You and he have no name or status yet live together. Truly improper. She'd always liked managing such matters. Since youth it had been so. I hurriedly found a way to deflect, smiling. How long has it been since General Shen sent a letter? Mother momentarily froze, then snorted softly, turning her head away. Better he doesn't. Saves me the trouble of burning them. Words spoken boldly. But if I hadn't once secretly entered the study, seen with my own eyes the pile of letters she hid in a wooden chest, I might have been fooled too. Just as I hadn't yet responded, suddenly from the wall came a familiar panting sound. Really? She really threw away all my letters? Father and Mother simultaneously looked up. My father was perched precariously on the wall, armor not yet removed, stubble covering his face, entire person dusty and travel-worn. Mother, momentarily stunned, hurriedly fixed her hair bun, then turned her head away. Her voice deliberately fierce and rigid. Of course it's true. Didn't you once say you'd rather die than marry me? Right then, Liam returned from morning court. I hurriedly helped father down, then pulled him away. Afraid of witnessing another earth-shattering reunion scene. My father had finally returned to the capital, not only returned but also brought glorious military achievements. The Marquis' manor rejoiced. The Duke's manor also rejoiced. Only the heir of the Marquis' manor felt anxious and uneasy. He tried his old tricks again, wanting to frame my father. But father was no longer the naive youth of the past. After several confrontations, the heir had to yield, admitting defeat wholeheartedly. The marriage between my parents was also settled. Everything unfolded exactly as I'd known. Only one thing was different. Liam still hadn't established a principal wife. But in my heart, I somehow still felt uneasy. What are you thinking? Seeing me dazed among the guest seats, Liam gently squeezed my hand. I smiled and shook my head. Nothing. Just thinking today the third young miss will definitely outshine everyone. There shouldn't be any problems, I told myself. Every month I had the old physician check my pulse, guarding against illness. I hadn't made enemies with anyone. Those who should be killed, Liam had killed. Those who should be imprisoned, he'd imprisoned. Moreover, I wasn't even his principal wife yet. Thinking thus, my heart felt more at ease. I cheerfully raised my cup with everyone. That day father and I drank until drunk. In the bitter wine's intoxication, I held his hand, tears and snot a mess, laughing while admonishing. You must definitely treat that third young miss well. Father looked at me, both drunk and moved, also choked up, saying, rest assured, this lifetime, if she tells me to go east, I absolutely won't dare go west. And indeed, he kept that promise. Mother later managed him so strictly he didn't dare even breathe loudly. Seeing it was already late, I pulled Liam to stand and bid farewell. Who would have thought, just stepping outside the courtyard, we saw a group of people secretly following along the corridor. They moved very quickly, their bearing knowing the route. Clearly they'd already mastered the Marquis' manor's layout, and their direction was precisely toward my parents' room. The wine in me immediately dissipated by half. You go quickly to call people. I'll go see what they're planning. But Liam didn't agree. Finally I compromised. I'd go call people. He'd go in first to investigate. When I led people running over, father and Liam were already fighting with assassins. Get inside and hide quickly. Liam immediately rushed over, pushing me into the room, his voice urgently instructing. Nina, listen, no matter what, don't come out. Nina, that pet name, I'd only told him once in a drunken night. He'd never called it before others, as if afraid that name would be carried away by wind. I nodded. Stay calm. I won't go anywhere. Clearly those people only targeted father. They weren't afraid of death. As long as they killed him, it was enough. In the chaotic instant, an injured man fell to the ground, suddenly throwing a flying blade straight at father. I didn't have time to think. My body automatically rushed to shield him. Time seemed to freeze. Amidst the shouting, I heard clearly Liam's hoarse scream. His eyes blazed red like when the poison struck years ago at the Tang household, desperately charging toward me. But I only saw his smile blur in the stream of blood. Then everything sank into silence. In my delirium, I heard the old physician's long sigh. Those methods have been lost for ages. Even if effective, they'd only extend life 1 or 2 months. You keep depleting your spiritual energy like this. When she wakes, I fear she'll scold you. I slowly opened my eyes, seeing the familiar thatched roof. Weak light filtering through the window lattice. In the corner, Liam was being bandaged by the old man, blood still staining his sleeves, his mouth still hoarsely scolding me. I just uttered a sound when violent coughing erupted. The entire room instantly fell silent. He gently turned his head. Seeing I'd woken, not minding the old physician's hands still bandaging, he hurriedly rushed to the bedside. Nina. He knelt halfway before me, trembling hands placed on my face, gentle as if afraid touching a dream would shatter. I gently touched the silk bandages wrapped around his chest. My voice choked. Why are you also so severely injured? His gaze reddened, glistening like water, lips pressed tight, unable to utter a word. I asked again, my voice trembling slightly. Jasper Shen and the third miss, how are they? Hearing this, his gaze suddenly darkened. Voice hoarse. They're fine. That day's people were sent by Jasper's older brother. All have been captured. Words calm, but carrying a bone-chilling killing intent, making the entire room seem to freeze. I only nodded, turning to ask the old physician. What about me? Are the injuries severe? The old man sighed softly. Before he could speak, Liam had already gripped my hand. It's nothing. Nina, I absolutely won't let anything happen to you. And indeed, just as he said, my injuries improved day by day. Before long I could sit with him before the house's eaves, watching the sunset descend on distant mountain ranges, slanting sunlight pouring down into the courtyard, covering 2 silent figures. Only medicine was the one thing I suffered most. Disgustingly, it also carried a fishy metallic scent. Nina, be good, drink medicine to recover quickly. No matter how I tried to avoid, he still skillfully coaxed, forcing me to drink to the last drop. I didn't spare a thought until one night, I suddenly woke in silence. Reaching out beside me, touching cold empty space, searching everywhere, finally I found him cutting his own chest, extracting blood. The old physician stood beside, stamping his feet repeatedly. You're mad. Like this, before long you'll die together with her. That instant, I finally understood why the medicine was so fishy. Why despite eating so much, he grew thinner daily. Eyes sunken deep, hands trembling. Turns out I'd already died that night. When the flying blade pierced my chest, he used his own blood to exchange for my breath. A death with no omen, yet predetermined by love too deep, too obstinate. I lay still, pretending not to know, silently returning to my spot, closing my eyes. Before long he returned, carrying the scent of blood drifting in the wind, embracing me from behind, fingertips gently touching the tear streaks at the corners of my eyes. Why are you crying? His voice was low, carrying some worry. I avoided the wound on his chest. That face was deathly pale, lips white as paper, eyes hiding cautious unease. I smiled and shook my head. Just a nightmare. He exhaled as if a burden lifted, then gently patted my back. It's all right, I'm here. I curved my lips, smiling without answering, gently closing my eyes. Early the next morning I was awakened by father's voice outside. Not clear what they said. Only knew in the end it was the same old scene of him chasing father down the mountain. These two, whenever they met, would argue, as if their whole lives they couldn't harmonize. I could only shake my head, smiling, climbing up to wash my face. Since coming to the mountain to stay with me, Liam no longer went to court, only occasionally handling military affairs sent up. That day he was busy, so I dug up 2 jugs of wine father had once hidden under the tree roots. The wine he said he'd save for his daughter in the future. The daughter was me, wasn't it? Waiting for him to finish work, I cleverly chased even the old physician away. Then donning new clothes, dabbing some rouge, I walked before him, spinning lightly. Beautiful. He looked up, his gaze gentle as spring wind. Beautiful. I giggled foolishly. He stroked my nose, asking softly, you drank? I nodded, grasping his hand. Liam, let's drink a nuptial cup. If I'd known sooner or later I'd die, I think I should have married you a year ago. His hand trembled slightly. Looking at the wine cup I offered but didn't accept, I smiled, asking softly, "Are you still angry I wouldn't marry before?" He shook his head slightly. I then sat down beside him, lifting the cup to drain it. "Lime, do you remember I once said I could tell fortunes? I knew later you'd be a high official, save the common people. Floods in Linzhou, droughts in Yuezhou, all would pass thanks to you." His voice trembled. "Nina, I don't want to be a high official, you must." I looked straight into his eyes, smiling gently yet firmly. "Because I want you to." My stomach cramped, sharp pain spreading throughout my body. I struggled to continue speaking. "Do you believe in reincarnation?" He seemed to understand something. Turning to look at me in alarm, I smiled. Blood from the corner of my mouth had already flowed down, red as rouge, spreading on white clothes. Painful, yet I still smiled. "Why are you crying?" I reached out to wipe away the tear at the corner of his eye. He choked up, eyes reddened. "You lied to me. Nina, you deceived me." I curved my lips in a faint smile. "I didn't deceive you about anything. You once said, as long as we didn't marry, you wouldn't die." I momentarily froze. Seems when drunk I'd let slip words I shouldn't have said. I also don't know. My nose stung. Tears couldn't be held back, flowing down. "I also don't know if I'd known beforehand." The words behind choked on sharp pain, as if thousands of needles pierced deep into my chest. "Nina." Seeing me like this, Liam truly panicked. He both wanted to go down the mountain to find the old physician, and wanted to extract blood to save me, both hands trembling, not knowing what to do first. I struggled to grasp his hand. "Don't go," I forced out each word. "Stay with me." He froze, then nodded forcefully. "All right, I won't go. I'm here. I'm right here." I looked at him, in my heart filled with countless words to say. But in the end, only one sentence came out. "Liam, I really like you. This lifetime, being able to meet you is my greatest fortune." His tears finally couldn't be held back, dripping onto my face. Warm. He held me, voice hoarse to the point of breaking. "Nina, don't leave me. Don't leave me alone." I smiled, reaching out to touch his face. "This time, we'll definitely be together, whether in this life or the next." My hand gradually lost strength, slowly dropping. The last thing I saw was his tear-filled face, and the brilliant sunset outside the window. Like that day when we first met. So beautiful. My consciousness gradually blurred, but I could still hear his voice, calling me over and over. "Nina, Nina," until everything sank into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the original starting point. The familiar tea pavilion, familiar maids, familiar everything, only I was no longer the same me. I touched my face, no wounds, no pain, as if everything before was just a dream. But I knew it was real. I had truly died once, and returned. Frost's voice rang out beside me. "Miss, what's wrong?" I shook my head. "Nothing, just suddenly felt a bit tired." That evening, I stood by the window of the tea pavilion, looking at pedestrians coming and going on the street. My heart suddenly filled with nameless melancholy. I knew somewhere in this world, there was someone who loved me deeply. Even if I'd forgotten everything, he still remembered, still waited. "Miss," Frost called me. I turned back, smiling. "Let's go home." Walking on the familiar street, my steps suddenly halted. Not far ahead, a Taoist in white robes was slowly approaching. When he passed by me, he suddenly spoke. "Miss, wait." I turned back. He looked at me, smiling faintly. "Do you believe in fate?" I was stunned, then smiled and nodded. "I believe." He smiled even more deeply, then raised his hand, pointing forward. "The next man Miss collides with will be your destined husband." I looked in the direction he pointed, seeing nothing. When I turned back, the Taoist had already vanished without trace. I stood in place, suddenly wanting to laugh. Destiny, so it really exists. I deliberately turned toward the opposite direction, wanting to see if I could escape this so-called fate. But at the corner, I still crashed into someone. That familiar scent, that familiar warmth. I slowly raised my head. Before my eyes was that face I'd seen countless times in dreams. He gently steadied me, voice warm yet distant. "Miss Shen." But when our gazes met, both simultaneously froze. In his eyes, I saw shock, confusion, and deep hidden yearning. "Liam." I softly called his name. He trembled, as if unable to believe his own ears. "You. How do you know my name?" I smiled, tears already blurring my vision. "Because I've been searching for you for a very long time." He looked at me. In those eyes gradually appeared understanding, and uncontrollable emotion. "Nina?" he asked softly, voice trembling. I nodded forcefully. "It's me. I'm back." He suddenly pulled me into his embrace, holding so tightly as if afraid I'd disappear again. "Nina, you finally came back." I buried my head in his chest, feeling his heartbeat, so real, so warm. "This time, I won't let go again." His voice rang above my head. "This time, we'll be together forever." I smiled, tears silently sliding down. "Yes, forever." The sunset's glow spilled over us, gilding our silhouettes golden. Passers-by cast curious glances, but we didn't care, only held each other tightly, as if wanting to merge into one. That day, we walked hand in hand through the entire city, from the tea pavilion to moon-gazing pavilion, from the busy market to quiet alleys, speaking of past life's every detail. Those joys, those sorrows, those regrets, all became this life's most precious memories. Liam told me, after I died, he kept his promise, became prime minister, brought peace to the people, but in his heart, there was always an empty space. That space belonging to me could never be filled. He searched for me for 20 years, never giving up, until that day when he saw me again. He finally determined I had truly returned. And I told him everything I remembered. Those 20 years, how I grew from an infant to now. He listened quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes tearing up. Finally, he gently kissed my forehead. Nina, this lifetime, I won't let you leave again. I nodded. This lifetime, I also won't leave. We sat at moon-gazing pavilion, just like that day years ago. Only this time, we were no longer strangers, but the closest people in the world. Liam suddenly stood, kneeling on one knee before me. Nina, will you marry me? That scene made me momentarily stunned, then smiled through tears. I will, he smiled, taking from his chest a jade pendant. This was what you gave me before. I've kept it all these years. Now I return it to you. I took the jade pendant, as if carrying all his longing across these years. I hung it around my neck, then held his hand. Liam, from now on, we'll never part. He nodded. Never part. That day, we made a new promise under the setting sun. This lifetime, we'd walk together. No matter what storms ahead, we'd never let go. And this time, fate finally stood on our side. Many years later, people often asked me, do you believe in reincarnation? I always smiled without answering. But in my heart, I knew I believed, because I had truly experienced it. That love transcending life and death, that promise spanning 2 lifetimes, all told me. Some feelings even time cannot erase. Some people even death cannot separate. And I was fortunate enough to find him in this vast sea of people, to fulfill that unfinished promise from the past life. This was perhaps the greatest fortune of my 2 lifetimes. The story ends here, but life continues. Liam and I eventually married, had children, lived a simple yet happy life. Father and mother also lived happily ever after. Everything was so perfect, as if the previous life's regrets had all been compensated in this life. Yet sometimes I still remembered that afternoon on the mountain, that sunset, and his final words, Nina, wait for me. I'll definitely find you. Now I wanted to tell him, I didn't wait in vain. You also didn't search in vain. We have finally been together. This time, it's forever. The sunset's glow once again spilled over us, just like that day when we first met. So beautiful, so warm. I leaned on his shoulder, softly speaking. Liam, in this lifetime, I will never regret. He held my hand, voice gentle. Me neither. We smiled at each other. In our eyes reflected each other's figures, and the eternal promise, no matter how many reincarnations, no matter how many lifetimes, we would always find each other, always be together. This was our destiny, also our choice. The story ends, because true love transcends time and space, transcends life and death, eternal and unchanging, and we are the luckiest people to possess such love, to fulfill such a promise. This lifetime, no regrets. Next lifetime, we'll meet again. But I hope there won't be a next lifetime. Because this lifetime is already perfect enough, already happy enough, enough for us to treasure forever in our hearts, in our memories, in our every day and night together. This is our story, a story about love and waiting, about destiny and promises, about 2 lifetimes in eternity, and this story will forever continue, in our hearts, in our lives, until the end of time. The end. No, not the end, but a new beginning, because our story has only just begun. This lifetime, we'll write it together, with love, with promises, with every beautiful day, until forever. From that day forward, Liam and I lived peacefully. Though occasionally court matters troubled him, returning home he always showed his warmest smile. We had 3 children. 2 sons and 1 daughter. The daughter most resembled me, mischievous and clever. Liam doted on her immensely, always saying she was just like I was in my youth. Father and mother also aged peacefully. Though they still bickered daily, anyone could see the deep affection in their eyes. Sometimes I wondered if this was the ending fate had arranged for us. Perfect, blissful, no regrets. But I knew this perfection came from the previous life's sacrifice, from Liam's 20 years of waiting, from our unending longing for each other. So I cherished every day, cherished every moment with him, because I knew how rare this happiness was, how precious. One evening, Liam and I sat in the courtyard watching the sunset. He suddenly spoke. Nina, do you sometimes feel this is like a dream? I shook my head. No, because you're beside me. This is definitely not a dream, he smiled, holding my hand. You're right, as long as you're here, anywhere is real. I leaned against his shoulder, softly speaking. Liam, thank you. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for finding me. He kissed my forehead. I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for still loving me. We embraced, under the setting sun's glow. This scene, so similar to that day on the mountain. Only this time, we would no longer part, would no longer have regrets. Many years later, when our hair had grayed, we still often sat in that courtyard, recounting past events, those joys and sorrows, those meetings and partings, all became the most precious memories in our lives. Our children sometimes asked, "Father, Mother, how did you two meet?" We'd exchange glances, then smile without answering, because that story was too long, too incredible. We only told them. Sometimes in life, you meet someone. Once you meet, it's for a lifetime. That person is your destiny, also your choice, and we were fortunate enough to find each other in this vast world. The story truly ends here. But love never ends, because true love transcends everything, eternal and unchanging. And Liam and I are living proof. Reincarnation exists, destiny exists, but more important is whether you're willing to believe, willing to pursue, willing to wait. If you're willing, then no matter how many lifetimes, you can find that person belonging to you. And we have already found each other. Next lifetime, every lifetime, we'll be together, forever. This is our story. A story about love and faith, about persistence and waiting, about 2 lifetimes and eternity, and this story will forever remain, in everyone's hearts, as the most beautiful memory, the most moving promise, until eternity. Actually, this story has another ending. An ending only Liam and I know. That day on the mountain, I didn't actually die. I only fell into deep sleep. When I woke, 20 years had passed. Liam kept his promise, stayed beside me, waiting for me to wake. He gave up everything. Position, power, fame, only to stay with me. When I finally opened my eyes and saw his aged face, tears couldn't be stopped. Voice still warm. "Nina, you're finally awake," I asked him. "Why didn't you leave?" he answered. "Because I promised you. I'd wait for you. Forever." That answer made me cry even harder. I knew what he'd given up, knew what he'd endured, but he never complained, never regretted, only stayed by my side, silently waiting. This was his love. Deep, selfless, eternal, and I was the luckiest person in the world. To have such love, to have such a person, this lifetime no regrets. That night, we sat together under the stars. He held my hand, speaking softly. "Nina, actually I've always known. I was stunned. You knew," he nodded. "From the first time I saw you, I knew. That familiar feeling, that unforgettable gaze, all told me you were her. You'd come back." I choked up. "Then why didn't you say?" He smiled. "Because I was afraid. Afraid it was just my wishful thinking. Afraid you wouldn't remember me. So I could only wait. Wait for you, remember. Wait for you to come back." I cried in his embrace. This fool who loved me. "Liam, thank you." He stroked my hair. "No need to thank me. Being able to wait for you is my greatest fortune." From that day on, we truly began our new life. No more misunderstandings, only deep love, and eternal promises. This is the true ending of our story. Not rebirth, but awakening. Not starting over, but continuation, because our love had never ended, only temporarily paused, and now, it continued, until forever. When Jasper arrived, I was sitting in Tang Residence's bridal chamber wearing deep red wedding robes. He stopped at the door, the smile on his lips froze. "Jade," she raised her head, eyes cold as ice. "Has the heir also come to drink celebratory wine?" Nina had died. She died because of him. Though before dying told me not to blame him, I couldn't do it. When he turned to leave, I said indifferently, "From now on, you and I have no relation. I hope the heir won't set foot in Tang Residence again." He didn't answer, didn't deny either, only silently disappeared under the gloomy evening sky. In a flash 2 years passed. Heard the Marquis Manor gave birth to a little princess named Nina. The child's 100-day banquet, I didn't attend. But the first time I met her was when she was 3. At a palace banquet, she got lost from her mother, running lost through the crowd, grabbing my hand. That tiny hand, so soft, still carrying milk's fragrance. Rosy face, soft slightly curly hair, eyes bright as stars, she looked up smiling at me. That smile exactly like Nina from years ago. If Nina and I had ever had a daughter, she'd surely look like this. On Nina's person was a strangely familiar feeling I couldn't look away from. Then one day, I realized whenever she lied, her ears would flush red, corners of her mouth would purse, depths of her eyes would flash a gleam trying to hide. When angry, she'd glare and stamp her feet like a child. That's when her old words rang in my head. Hey Liam, do you believe in reincarnation? I smiled faintly. I believe, because as long as it's Nina's words, I believe all of them. Nina is my Nina. She's forgotten me, and is 20 years younger than me. Nina is still young while I've grown old, long since no longer a well-matched pair. As long as I can protect her for a lifetime of peace and prosperity, I ask for nothing more. But she's truly too mischievous. Today climbing walls, tomorrow teasing cats and dogs, even nearly losing her life under a fierce tiger's fangs. My lord, you mustn't. Sui Tong's words barely finished when I'd already drawn my sword and charged forward. When I devoted all my strength to strike the tiger, I was extremely afraid. Afraid I couldn't protect her. My lord, you're injured. After bringing Nina back to the study hall, Sui Tong looked at my sword, gripping hand. I tilted my head slightly to look into the hall where Nina sat dejectedly. The corner of my mouth curved lightly. It's nothing. As long as Nina is fine, I'm fine too. My lord, why do you care so much about Miss Shen? Haven't you and the Marquis' household always been at odds? I turned to walk straight ahead. The Marquis dons armor for battle, brave and peerless. When have I ever been at odds with him? Had I known this day would come, back then I wouldn't have said those words to Jasper. Now even the excuse to openly look at Nina is gone. What truly broke me was one morning. I saw a strand of white hair on my head. My mood plummeted. My lord has devoted himself to country and people, so naturally grayed early. Little Tong knelt on the ground, carefully flattering. But he didn't know what that white hair meant to me. I knew Nina and I no longer had any possibility. I'd never even hoped for possibility, but I didn't want to be old. From that day forward, I searched everywhere for youth, preserving medicines, drank them for several years straight. That day was no different from any ordinary day. Heard Nina had gone to the tea pavilion early in the morning, while I attended a banquet at moon-gazing pavilion with several court ministers. Suddenly I saw Nina chasing a Taoist up to moon-gazing pavilion. When I chased after, it was already too late. I jumped down with her. What was I thinking then? I thought if Nina lives I live, if Nina dies I die. Die. A whole day unable to think of anything else. How could that be? A dignified prime minister, only knowing to live and die for a woman. Nina was furious. Hairpins in her hair clattering in chaos. More pleasing to the ear than music in palace banquets. I couldn't help but arch my brows and lower my eyes. The corners of my eyes and brows no longer needed to hide my feelings. Nina taught me right. It's all my fault. I softened my voice to coax. Nina glared at me. I very quickly sent people to propose at Jasper's. Seeing me was no different from seeing a dog whose tail had been stepped on. He covered his ears saying, "Who do you want to marry? What about my Nina now?" He showed no mercy, kicking me out of Shen Manor's gates. Cursing me, an old ram still wanting to nibble young grass. She made me wait 20 years. Now puts me in such a difficult position. Don't know what she said to mother. That day when I brought betrothal gifts in, the Marquis lady's face was slightly bruised, glaring at me from head to toe. The wedding was quickly decided. On the wedding day, I was endlessly nervous, only hoping to quickly return to the bridal chamber to see her. Just as I embraced her, from outside came cursing. It was Jasper, drunk. "Liam, you beast. What exactly did you give my daughter to drink as a love potion? I must kill you. How dare you covet my young daughter?" He cursed loudly in the courtyard. "Marquis, please calm your anger. Minister Tang is also young and talented, status noble. Won't let Miss suffer any grievances." That's right. Think about it. Right now you and he are equals. In the future he'll have to call you father-in-law. You can mistreat him however you want. Isn't that wonderful? Sure enough, Jasper's cursing quieted a bit. Fine, I owe him one wife. But then like a stuck pig he shouted loudly, "You dare betray my Nina, I'll drain your blood." He was dragged back by mother, walking while making a ruckus. Hearing this, Nina also burst out laughing. "Can we drink the nuptial wine now?" Nina asked me with a smile. Red candles right behind her, candlelight swaying, pale yellow covering the deep red wedding robes, making her like a descended fairy, silk curtains gently swaying. In that instant, I thought this was just a beautiful dream. Afraid the dream would end, I hurriedly took the wine, draining it in one gulp. Nina's cheeks flushed red, eyes glistening with moisture. She leaned close to my ear, breathing softly. "Minister Tang," I heard them say, "men past 25 become impotent. Don't know if it's true or false." The wine cup fell from my hand. I reached to remove the hairpins from her hair, pressing her onto the bed. "My lady, try and you'll know. These years of drinking medicine truly wasn't wasted." Not until the next morning did the bed curtains swaying finally stop. Nina's hair was soaked. She had no strength left to scold me, only lightly bit my shoulder. Liam, you bully people. Her voice small as a mosquito, still carrying a sob. I only felt my whole body go numb. It's all my fault. I held her in my arms, voice gentle and coaxing. She nuzzled into my chest, finding a comfortable spot. Liam, actually I've liked you for a very, very long time. Me too. This time we must definitely last long. Yes. This time my Nina will definitely live to 100 years old. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.